Hey there, and welcome back to Rival Reviews. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for all of the, reviews on in regards to this format that I did last week, or last couple weeks, last episode. Let's go with that. And you guys seem to really like it, so I think going forward, this is what I'll probably do. I think like I said, what I'll probably do is that I'll obviously do the original, like kind of like what I did beforehand, where what I'm going to watch that season, my first thoughts, and then kind of like a middle how it's going, and then how it ended. And then I think what I'll do is that I'll do episodes like this, or maybe even some more Q&As in the future, about the in regards to like doing an episode here or there about like one specific anime. So what I'm going to do this week, one of the biggest, critiques that I got was how I did not go with my known to all who have listened to this favorite anime. So here we go. This is the episode about Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. So, let's start with a little overview and introduction. So, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is a Japanese anime series adapted from the manga Fullmetal Alchemist by Hiromu Arakawa. The series premiered in 2009 quickly garnered a massive following for its compelling story, complex characters, and philosophical themes. Unlike its predecessor, the 2003 anime adaptation Brotherhood follows the manga's storyline closely, offering a more faithful and complete adaptation. I always find this funny when I talk about, like, with friends and everything else like that, which one I like more, so on and so forth, and it's definitely Brotherhood for sure. Obviously, I think that's this is due to the fact that it went in the direction that the story went in the direction that the writer originally, wanted, and it's kind of interesting when you go back and watch either one. Like, you can see where it completely, veered off. It went in a completely different path. Not to say... So here's the thing. I would never say that I guess we call it the original anime series, just Fullmetal Alchemist. I would never say that it's bad. It's just bad in comparison to Brotherhood. Because at some point, kind of right in the middle there, it becomes a completely different story. With different stakes, different main bad guy, different kind of thought and to how really the world itself works. With the first one kind of going in the direction of the Emperor of Shambhala and everything else like that, and, this whole alternate universe theory, so on and so forth, everything else, and Brotherhood doesn't do, it was very interesting that it, for something that decided to kind of go off on its own to create a finished television product, to be so completely different in how Brotherhood ended, and not even in terms of like characters, world building, and story. Most interesting to me is the main baddie too. Like, usually, like, if you're gonna do a different adaptation, that's fine, but like usually those core elements are generally the same. So it's very interesting in this sense where, though, yes, they are the same thing and are both obviously clearly inspired by the same source material, they are two completely different stories. So it is definitely not fair to say that just because you've watched one means that you've watched the other. That's just not the case when it comes to Fullmetal Alchemist and then Brotherhood, respectively. So like I said, I wouldn't say that Fullmetal Alchemist, the original anime, is bad. It's just, in my opinion, and I would say in the majority of the population that have watched both, that Brotherhood is just, it reigns supreme. What I generally tell people, kind of going back to my original point here, is that if you are planning to watch this series and you haven't yet, my advice would be to watch the original Fullmetal Alchemist first before you watch Brotherhood. Just for the fact that, like I said, especially with and again, I just find that the strength of the story and the way that they both end and everything else like that, Brotherhood is just so much more superior, that if you are to watch Brotherhood first, I don't think it gives a fair chance to the original Fullmetal Alchemist. What I kind of like about the idea is that, like, one, it's almost kind of like I've gotten a little mini alternative reality story from the other one. And the other cool part about it is because, like, you get to, like, you know, delve into some other characters that maybe you didn't think were going to be as important. And then there's, like, the whole idea of it, like, being, like, an alternate reality to our own type of thing. And yeah, so there is definitely some cool aspects about it, but I would still definitely say that if you were to watch Brotherhood first, you wouldn't appreciate the original as much as you could. That would be my only suggestion on that. Like I said, both are great. Brotherhood is just better. So for, you know, lack of talking about the different realities, the rest of this episode will be focusing on Brotherhood because that is my favorite. So yeah, to kind of like give an overview, the story is set in a fictional world where alchemy is one of the most advanced scientific techniques. It follows the journey of two brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, who use alchemy to attempt to resurrect their deceased mother. However, the experiment goes terribly wrong, resulting in Edward losing his left leg and Alphonse losing his entire body. Edward sacrifices his right arm to bind Alphonse's soul to a suit of armor. The series then chronicles their quest to find the Philosopher's Stone, a powerful artifact that could restore their bodies. Yeah, so kind of going into that kind of at the, you know, kind of really rolls into my next segment, which would be the key things and philosophical questions that are kind of explored in this show. And I think that's why it resonates so deeply and why it is considered one of the best animes. Like, and this isn't just my opinion. Like, you know, there's a whole, I'm sure the majority of readers know what my anime list is. There's a reason why it's number one on that list, with millions upon millions of users using that site. And even the diehards that, you know, kind of bomb other animes on purpose. I'm not one of those, but how I like to see that in a positive light is that there's some crazies crazy enough that do not want to see this one lifted from its throne. And I kind of leave it at that. But yeah, so I would say if I had to put it down, there's three, I guess, kind of main key themes and philosophical questions, in my opinion, that are kind of like the overarching elements that create the story. So first, obviously and foremost, is the law of equivalent exchange and this idea. So this principle follows the foundation of alchemy. In the series states that to obtain something of equal value must be lost. This concept raises questions about the cost of ambition and the moral implications of scientific advancement. So it's interesting that it really does touch on some real life kind of, you know, give and take, is the best way to put it, and it personifies it, like I said, like kind of, so at the beginning of this, you know, the equivalent exchange, what they attempted to do when failing to bring their mother back to life, they actually physically lost parts of themselves. In Alphonse's case, he literally lost his entire body, and the only reason he comes back tied to the suit of armor is because of Edward's quick thinking, honestly. And really is the only way that kind of goes on. And it's kind of interesting in the sense that, and what I would say, what it rolls really into the next kind of idea, which would be sacrifice and redemption. Just for the fact that, you know, I think throughout the entire show, there is a lot to be said about what is one willing to sacrifice for the needs of not only one's personal gain, but the betterment of the greater good, I guess, is the best way that I can put it. You know, the series constantly explores what individuals are willing to sacrifice for their goals. You know, like I said, it goes straight from, you know, the Elric brothers' initial sacrifice to the choices made by the supporting characters like Roy Mustang, Scar, you know, even some of the homunculi. You know, if you talk about Greed's, you know, decisions throughout the thing and everything, throughout the course of the show has crazy, consequences and stuff to the overarching story. And I think what the show does best is that it examines the personal cost of pursuing one's ideals and the possibility of redemption, and what can come along with that. And third and foremost, what I think is probably one of the biggest key themes, is the nature of humanity. Right? So you have the homunculi, you have the artificial humans that are created through alchemy. They kind of serve as like this almost like dark reflection of human desires and flaws. I think it's a very like obvious kind of gawking moment too, where like, they think that they've created this powerful army and their perfect weapon and everything else. And then of course, the moment that it awakens, it essentially becomes like, well, basically like the whole army turns on their makers. And then same, obviously, you can also be said that, the homunculi, they're personified all by the 7 deadly sins, obviously. They don't really make that, they don't lack shoving that in your face at all. And I find that a lot of them embody mostly the negative connotations that come with those. The only one that I would say that is kind of like, I guess, that kind of almost has a better ending than most of them would be greeds, because, greed, instead of like, just being about the money or the satisfaction or anything else like that, is that he, in a weird way, is greedy of his relationships with people. So the thing that makes him snap the most, especially at the end, and makes him turn on his other homunculi, I guess, brothers and sisters, you could call them, is that they were hurting what was his. So it's kind of like odd, I guess, in a sense, that you look at it from that way, that he almost treats people as commodities, but at the end of it, I think it is more deeper than that. And it's very clear that, he's greedy for the feelings of like, love and compassion and care. And that doesn't necessarily, and greed doesn't necessarily have to be, negative things like, doing anything they want for power or money or like anything like that. It was almost like a term that, just because they call it a sin doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be sinful, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's very interesting to see the way that they interact with other humans, even, because like I would say, I think one of the biggest ones here is like, like even kind of like the dying monologue of Envy after, Roy, basically essentially annihilates her to the point that she can't, regenerate, and learns that self-respecting thing, that the reason why she basically, he or she, I don't know, basically that they never stayed in their original form is because they were like same thing. They were jealous of the feelings that friends could have for each other, that the camaraderie of the humans and everything else coming together to fight the homunculi, things like that. And it becomes fairly obvious that, the jealousy was, though it was to their detriment at the end, I think they learned that, that it was something worthy to be envious of. Because I find that a lot of Envy's anger came from being envious, but not really understanding as to why, because they just saw the humans as weaker than them. But because they worked together and because they used the power of their relationships and everything else to fuel their fight, that's what defeated them in the end. So it's very interesting that it kind of goes that way. So kind of to break down, I guess, in my mind, there's 4 kind of like main characters that, like, I would say are memorable to this series. So, of course, we have our lead, Edward Elric. He is the Fullmetal Alchemist. He is a brilliant and determined young man. His journey is as such about personal growth and self-discovery as it is about restoring his and his brother's bodies. Edward's character development is marked by his evolving understanding of the consequences of his actions and his increasing empathy. You know, I think at the beginning of the anime, and even like when like it kind of flashes back to when Edward's like a child, it's very obvious that he's very, not pompous, but all he cares about is alchemy and using that alchemy for his own personal gains. You know, like at first I think it was a curiosity because like he learned from his father's books and stuff like that about what it was and what it could do. And then, you know, we jump all the way obviously to the initial sacrifice at the beginning of him basically trying to, you know, defy the laws of the world and tries to bring back his mother from the dead. And, you know, even if we go further into the adventure, you know, of him, I have to find the Philosopher's Stone to get our bodies back. I have to find it and everything else. And then when he learns what would need to be done to use the Philosopher's Stone, or what the Philosopher's Stone, how it was created and everything else like that, you know, by the time that he gets there through his adventure, through the people that he's learned from his own personal mistakes, and like I said before, his own kind of personal growth and self-discovery, he learns that, you know, just because he wants it for his own personal gains, that doesn't mean that you should overlook what is for the greater good. Which is super interesting and super personified, especially, and again, if you haven't watched this is the spoilers, so just, sorry. But like, you know, at the end, he even sacrifices the thing, arguably, that makes him the most powerful and that he loves the most, which is the power for him to use alchemy for his brother's sake and for the sake of the world. And, you know, instead of having to use this magic stone that he's been on this thing for, because he knows how it was made and everything else like that, he chooses, you know what, I'm going to use the one thing that is mine and mine alone to get what I want, equivalent exchange. And that definitely closes the door on his personal growth and character development, and is huge because it's like his number one weapon and the thing that he loves the most doing. But he obviously learned, and it was probably expected that, you know, it didn't matter because he was getting his brother back. But yeah. So next, obviously, kind of going back would definitely be Alphonse Elric. So he is bound to a suit of armor because of his body being taken away when they tried to bring the mother back. Alphonse often serves as kind of like the moral compass of the series. You know, anytime when his brother is going to kind of go off the deep end, so to speak, or maybe do something that's questionable and moral, he's kind of always there to like be like, you know, brother, we don't do this. That's not us. That's not how we do things. And it's kind of like really funny because, like, you know, there's the, you know, the further from the ongoing joke that he's always being called the Fullmetal Alchemist instead of his brother because he's actually made of, you know, metal all over. He has this like really big, imposing appearance and everything else. But he's actually like the super, like he's the Jolly Green Giant. He's super gentle, super caring. And then, you know, his more it's interesting that his more personal struggle was kind of like his struggle with like his loss of humanity. Like, you know, he doesn't sleep, he doesn't eat, and, you know, all this time he's trying to deal with that, but then also being like this unwavering support system for his brother, which I feel like definitely personifies, like, he's more of the personification of the deep bond between them. And I would say arguably that, you know, Edward would have probably just gone and used the Philosopher's Stone for whatever he wanted in the future if it wasn't for Alphonse being with him every step of the way. Next person I want to talk about is my all-time favorite anime character of all time, Mr. Roy Mustang, the Flame Alchemist. He's a complex character driven by a sense of duty and desire for justice. His ambition to become Führer and reform the corrupt government is central to his character arc, showcasing his strategic mind, the burdens of leadership. I think further from, like, just kind of the, for lack of better expression, the badassery of his character. I also love the fact that though he comes off as a very, like, curt to the book, the law is the law, so on and so forth, he also knows how to, I guess, look past that. Like, case in point, he visits Edward Elric a little whiles after he and Alphonse try to bring back his mother. And theoretically, right then and there, they should have been taken away to, like, prison or whatever, or anything else like that. But instead, he saw that the kids were broken. He saw that they had already lost everything that was important to them. And, overlooked it. And then also kind of became a weird sort of, almost like a father figure to the boys. Like, even though he kind of came off as, like, being a bother and everything else like that, he was always there in their corner, making sure that they were making the right decisions, that they were well taken care of, that basically somebody was able to keep their eye on them, because he seemed to be the one person that, because they were, essentially children in an adult's world. And he was one of the main people that was, like, he walked the fine line of knowing that they were children, but not treating them like children, because they, were involved in all of the important things and everything else like that. But he, knew when they had to be kids and when they had to be adults, is probably the best way that I can put it. And just that, that envy scene, and also even that fight with Lust and everything else too. He's so badass. He's great. Best character ever. And last but certainly not least, I want to bring up Winry Rockbell. Not only is obviously, the mechanic of the automail that Edward has to use for his arm and leg. She also is, the childhood friend. She represents kind of like the emotional heart of the series. I find that the best way that I can put it is that her relationship with the brothers adds, like, a depth to their characters and provides, like, if Alphonse is the grounding to Edward's morality, Winry is the one that brings them both back, knowing that, like, they can be normal, they are human, it's okay to make mistakes, it's, basically making sure that they're not just scientists, they're not just alchemists, they're not just, weapons of war, they're not anything like that, they're good people. And she's the one that, like, keeps them very grounded emotionally. And that's definitely the importance that she brings, for sure, in a very emotional sense. I'd be amiss to say that, obviously, Fullmetal Alchemist as a whole has left its mark on anime. It's a well-crafted narrative, with rich character development, and it sets in my opinion, really high standard for not only storytelling, but also world building. I think the last thing that I would like to maybe point out is obviously the soundtrack of this anime, in my opinion, is super iconic as well. Like every other week, I have to listen to Again by Yui at least once. And I find that this is one of the, like, kind of original ones where, like, it's the standard and benchmark to my mind of, like, animation quality, if that makes sense. Like, it's like this and up. Because, like, obviously I know that it's, like, it's 2009, so I know that obviously it was a while ago. So obviously I'm not a stranger to think that animation hasn't gotten better, because it definitely has, but I find it harder to now watch things that are older than that, because this is my benchmark. And like I've said in past episodes before, anybody who asks me, I want to try an anime, I want to get into anime, what should I watch? This is the first one that I always bring up. I will, and it honestly probably will be forever. And I don't know, like several friends, my wife, just anybody, and even in conversation I've brought it up, that it needs to be like, it's it's the gateway anime, in my opinion, is the best way that I can put it. So yeah, I guess my closing thoughts on this. Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, it's a profound exploration of human nature, ambition, and the quest for redemption. Its enduring popularity is a testament to its powerful storytelling and the emotional resonance it holds for viewers around the world. Thank you again, obviously, for listening. I'm hoping that you, like I said, I got some good feedback on the last one, so I thought I would do it again with obviously my favorite one here. I think there will probably be one more episode like this. I'll have to think about which anime I'm going to do it about. And then we'll probably at that point be at the end of this season, so then we can go back to reviewing. But yeah, let me know what you think. I hope it was entertaining. And like I said, Rival X Reviews on all social medias. If you want to reach out, let me know what you think. Just say hi, whatever. So yeah, till next time, stay curious, stay passionate, and remember, to gain something, you must give something of equal value. Bye-bye.